Welcome to Preparing Youth for the Future, Strategies for Building Out-of-School Time Career Readiness Programs. If you're just hopping in now, I'm going to be waiting another minute or two before we begin. I'd love to hear where people are coming in from. I'm here in Boston, where it is very hot right now. But if you want to share where you are and what your role is, what organization you're coming in from, or what you do for work, that would be really amazing while we're waiting for some more people to come into the chat or into the room. So I'll be looking at the chat to see if anyone's sharing where they're calling in from. Again, welcome to Preparing Youth for the Future, Strategies for Building Out-of-School Time Career Readiness Programs. We'll probably start in another minute or so. If you're just hopping in, we'd love to hear where you're coming in from. You could use the chat feature, which is right below the screen when you're looking at it. There's a little button that says chat. It looks like a little thought bubble. You can add where you're calling in from and what your role is. We'd love to see where everybody's coming in from. We'll give it about another minute or so while everyone's getting settled. And if you haven't yet, we'd love to hear where you're calling in from and what your role is. See San Antonio, Texas, North Dakota. Oh, good afternoon, North Dakota. Cincinnati, Ohio. So coming in from all over the country, Wisconsin, Washington, D.C. Welcome, welcome. New York, Seattle, Boston. Welcome, everybody. So I'll go ahead and get started now. Welcome to the webinar, Preparing Youth for the Future, Strategies for Building Out-of-School Time Career Readiness Programs. I'm Ashley Hemme. I'm the Manager of Program Engagement and one of the collaborators of the Big Sister Playbook. And I'm here from American Student Assistance, also called ASA for short, which is a national nonprofit focused on helping middle and high school students learn about themselves, know their options, and make informed decisions about their futures. So I'm so thrilled to be here today with today's phenomenal panelists. So today we have Ariel Fitzhugh, who's the director of Our Big Futures and one of the collaborators and one of the drivers of the playbook. And she's coming in from the Big Sister Association of Greater Boston. We have Jillian Luckner, who's the policy director at After School Alliance. Charlene Alexandra Joseph, coming in from Mentor National. She's the senior director of systems innovation. And Dr. Polly Johnson, director of education and workforce development from Boys and Girls Clubs of the Tennessee Valley. We're so excited today because this webinar is not only going to share best practices across the career exploration field, but also it's coming at the heels of the release of a toolkit co-written by Big Sister of Greater Boston and ASA called Preparing Youth for the Future, Teen and Young Adult Career Readiness Programs at Big Sister Association of Greater Boston. The toolkit focuses on the Our Big Futures program, also called OBF, and it's a career readiness program at Big Sister that serves female identifying youth ages 14 to 24. Today, during this session, we will explore the OBF program, talk about learnings from the last few years at Big Sister, chat about best practices in out-of-school programming and career readiness, discuss what out-of-school program policy looks like across the country, and share resources for attendees to use for their own career readiness or out-of-school programs. A few little housekeeping items. If you have a question or if you want to join in on the discussion, please use the chat. We will have some time for Q&A at the end. Our main discussion is going to be the first 45 minutes, and we'll have 15 minutes of discussion after that. And if we don't get to your question during the Q&A, the ASA team will do their best to answer your questions right in the chat as well. So I would like to start really by learning or sharing a little bit about what the OBF program is. So Ariel, if you could share your role, more about the Big Sister Association of Greater Boston, what our Big Futures is, its history, how it started and where it is now, and really what the program is and what the program does.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel Fitzhugh, and I'm the director of Our Big Futures at Big Sister Boston. Our Big Futures launched in 2020, and it is a career readiness program that supports our little sisters 14 to 24, as well as our high school mentoring bigs. We primarily do that support with individualized coaching, where we work on goal setting. And then we connect them to resources and opportunities that align with those set goals. We also support them in accessing those resources and opportunities in an effort to move them closer to financial independence. And really, Our Big Futures came from little sisters were asking for support in planning their futures and accessing resources to achieve their career and education goals. And the work really started happening in different programming spaces. And our leadership team really leaned into that and started conversations with potential funders to bring a full-fledged career readiness program.
It's amazing. So before we really get into the heart of this discussion, we'd love to share a little bit about the toolkit itself. And this toolkit is readily available on ASA's website. We'll share the link in the chat. And so anybody can download it for free. Back in 2019, I believe, is when ASA and Big Sister started their partnership as OBF was launched. And so the reason why this toolkit has kind of come to be is through our work together, we were hoping to kind of launch essentially a pilot program of what this really looks like, and then learn about best practices that we can share with other organizations. The Big Sister program was created as a gender intentional program for female identifying youth, but many of the best practices we're going to talk about today can be replicated by out of school programs and really in school programs all over the country. And so we're really going to talk about what the heart of this toolkit is and how these best practices can be replicated and what they look like in different contexts. So I'm going to screen share and show the toolkit, and our team will actually share the link in the chat. But this is the full toolkit, Preparing Youth for the Future, which is based on OBF's program. And so we go into an introduction all about OBF, so giving that context that Ariel just shared, and sharing why this program came to be and why it's crucial here and now. And then we go into guiding values. So there are 3 guiding values that we're going to talk about today that are really the core kind of principles to how Our Big Futures was designed and how it's continued to run, and how these values are critical pieces to any youth career readiness program. And so those values we'll go into a little bit more, but they're programs that are youth-centered, that are committed to social justice, and that are focused on community engagement. And we're really going to delve deeply into each of those values today. Next, it goes into program design. So what are the critical components to designing an initial program, or thinking about a program that already exists and expanding that to include career coaching or career mentoring? And then after that, it really goes into the actual program implementation. We also have age-appropriate activities and events and recommendations and what that looks like in practice, and key details on building relationships. So then there's the program implementation piece. So what does it actually look like in practice? And what are some recommendations for how to engage youth? And so there are actual different levels of engagement that Big Sister incorporates in Our Big Futures. Some are kind of initial informed engagement, more involved engagement, and then collaborative engagement, where youth are really, really involved throughout the program. And they can ebb and flow throughout those engagement models based on their own individual need and interest. And then we go into building a network, how to engage stakeholders all across the community and work alongside employers to provide work-based learning experiences for youth. And there are some tips and tricks throughout here, as well as testimonials of what that looks like coming directly from the youth who are served. There's another section on reporting outcomes and learnings. how to collect data, what data to collect, what types of data to collect, and how to report that out. And then a whole section on program funding, because all of this is really great to talk about, but without the funding initiative, sometimes that's really hard to implement. And we're actually going to tap on program funding a little bit later in this session. And then the last part of this toolkit is a whole guide on how to develop your career readiness program. So all of that context and information that was shared throughout the toolkit is built into a 3-step model of how to build or expand a career readiness program, whether out of school or in school. And so it actually goes through each step, references the parts that were from the earlier toolkit, has spots for notes. So it really works for a workshop or professional development session for an organization seeking to engage in this kind of work or expand on the work. And so again, we will share that in the chat throughout this session, but that is the toolkit we're here to talk about and talk about career readiness. So now we get to really get into this discussion, which I'm so excited about. And Polly and Charlene, my first question is for you both. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your organizations and about your role. And then the kind of core kind of initial question of why career and workforce readiness? Why is that critical for youth? And youth are specifically in middle school and high school. And how are your organizations doing that work?
I'll go ahead and start. Greetings to everyone from Knoxville, Tennessee. I apologize for the accent. It's been around for a long time. But I am Polly Johnson. I'm Director of Education and Workforce Development Programs for the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Tennessee Valley. I've been with the organization full-time for 9 years. Prior to that, I've worked as an educator in the public school system, and then also in higher education as well. And so, I have some background and some different viewpoints in terms of coming into this position. But for me and our organization within and looking at career readiness and workforce development, it's essential for our young people to be aware of what comes next, what their futures will look like, and then for us to be able to make sure and ensure that we're preparing for that future. One of our goals within our organization is to ensure that our young people are graduating on time with a plan for the future. So whether they're looking at going into the military, whether they're looking at career or they're looking at college, we want to ensure that we provided opportunities for them to, be successful within which avenue that they would like to go down. Thank you.
I love your accent, Dr. Johnson. I think it's great. Hi, good people. My name is Charlene, and I serve as the Senior Director of Systems Innovation at Mentor's National Office. And when we think about career readiness and why it's so critical for young people today, I think it's really important to note that Mentor as an organization really believes that potential is equally distributed, but opportunity is not for our young people. And a major driver of healthy development and opportunity is really who you know and who's in your corner. And so Mentor really focuses on partnering directly with employers and caring adults to provide really strong on-ramps for leaders to help the emerging workforce obtain and maintain employment. There are so many strong programs such as Big Sister out there who are supporting young people, who are supporting the caring adults and making sure that they're feeling ready to receive young people in workplaces and in career readiness programs. And that's really where Mentor's work shines.
It's amazing. And Charlie and Paul, you both tapped into this critical piece that it's kind of everybody's role to engage in this work, right? It's about educators, it's about practitioners, but then it's also about the greater community and adult mentors, and then also thinking about policymakers. And so, Jillian, I'm going to move to you next to ask a few questions about, with After School Alliance, the focus is really out of school programs, and we're talking about out of school programs here. So why after school and out of school programs? What need do they meet, and what's the impact for out of school programs?
Yeah, thanks. And I really appreciate being here and especially being with this panel and this work. So I do work with After School Alliance where we do research and advocacy and some field building on out of school time programs. And of course, it's essential to all students because really 80% of the time they spend over the course of their year is in out of school spaces. It's summer programs, it's weekends, it's vacations, and it's before and after school each day. And it's important for students and families. So I have a couple slides that we use because every 5 years we do a survey of the fields of parents called America After 3 p.m., which shows kind of which students are looking for programs. And Jing, I don't know if you have access to those or if they can be put up, but the first slide just talks about demand. And what we know is that 25 million students across the United States would love to have access to after school programs. But one of the big issues for them is kind of their ability to access. And that includes a variety of reasons. We know students don't have programs in their area. That's perfect, thank you. And on the next slide, you can even see the barriers, which is one, accessibility, another, affordability, and another, transportation. And these, of course, as we know, to Charlene's point, are not equitably distributed barriers. They actually increase when we look at people from low-income households and different demographic groups. And so on the next slide, I'm trying to go through this relatively quickly, but there are huge benefits. And so I really appreciate that question. Because we know that these programs help our students to succeed and they help them in a way that really complements the school day, but also offers something a little bit different than the school day would normally offer. And those are things like interacting with peers, those important life skills that they're getting, that STEM learning that really helps with that critical thinking and that collaboration on all the pathways. And then on the next slide, we can see that not only is kind of this important for students, but this is something that these programs have been, to your point on kind of research and engaging in best practice and continuous improvement, improving on year after year. And so this just shows from our survey from 2014 to 2020, we're seeing more parents recognizing the benefits of these programs. And some of the statistics here just show how these programs are allowing children to build positive relationships with caring adults and mentors, and how that's increased from 71% to 77%. So this is a huge impact on these students to really connect with the people who are going to help them continue on their life's path and do the things that most motivate and interest them. And so on the next slide, I also want to just mention, of course, this is, it's kind of a third space. It's certainly not childcare. It's certainly not a school. It's just youth development. It's its own fields, but it is connected to schoolwork. And so when we, really serve students in these places, the things that kind of launch their career and that launch their college pathway are connected. And so these programs help improve students' attendance, behavior, and coursework through engagement and quality programs like the ones that the people on this call are all engaging in. And so on the next slide, I just want to talk now kind of about a little bit of the policy pieces. And so with 25 million students across the country who need these programs, the work that we do at the After School Alliance is really think about that level of demand and how we can get more funding into the hands of great programs and great providers to do the great work that they do. And the main, one of the main ways that we do that is through the 21st Century Community Learning Center funding stream, which is really kind of the only federal funding stream that specifically supports after school and summer programs that is about 20 years old. And so what's encouraging is that this year in the fiscal year appropriations, Congress has proposed about $120 million increase, which would serve about 120,000 extra students if the House version of the bill were passed. And there's also some positive encouraging investments that are proposed for youth mentoring and a national youth employment program. And so that kind of directly goes into the work being done on this call. So for those of you who have been advocating these programs, and I've seen some names that I recognize, thank you so much. And for those who want to continue the advocacy, it's really important to get this funding out. And then there's just some other pieces on the horizon as well. And so just want to mention that there's a workforce innovation and opportunity reauthorization that's coming up to keep your eyes on. And that really promotes a lot of the work to help those 14 to 22 and beyond year olds really get the funding that they need to get paid work experiences. And some other things to keep in mind, like child nutrition reauthorization and some science bills that are on the horizon. So I'll stop there and pass it back. But lots of opportunity once we know that the real effects and benefits of the field. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jillian. So knowing that there's a clear need for career readiness programs, and it's a clear need for in all spaces and for students to have multiple touch points, whether it be in school, out of school, digitally, which we'll kind of get into, which is something that ASA helps provide. As we look at out of school programs and career readiness programs, the toolkit really highlights 3 guiding values that are at the core of this work. And those values are programs that are youth-centered, that have a commitment to social justice, and that are focused on community engagement. And so we're going to talk about each of these values, what they look like in practice, and what they look like throughout these different programs. So this is kind of a general question to the group. The first value described in the toolkit is youth-centered, and to be youth-centered in all aspects of programs. And that's actually like a buzz phrase that you hear often in education spaces, being youth-centered. But what does that actually mean? What does that look like in implementation? And what does that look like in your individual organizations?
And Charlene, I'd love to share what's happening at Mentor. So because we focus on healthy youth adult relationships and provide evidence-based practices, high quality resources for the past 30 years, like youth voice is critical to what we do and frankly to Mentor's mission and trying to be and when we try to be like continuously relevant for young people to develop more evidence-based practices, you need youth voice, right, as a part of that process. And an example I want to share with folks is that at Mentor, we engaged in a youth ambassadors program where young people were supporting us with policy work, kind of to what Jillian was speaking to, the significance of policy work and moving that needle for our young people. And the young people really lifted up issues that were happening in their communities across the nation and worked as partners to Mentor and with their local legislators to really lift up issues that were happening. And it was a wonderful year-long opportunity for them. And we'd love to share a little bit in the chat too around kind of the best practices, lessons learned, and evaluation from that program as well. So that's how we're incorporating youth voice and making sure youth advocacy and youth leadership is at the forefront of our work.
We also utilize youth voice in terms of our programs and the topics in which we expose our young people to in terms of career readiness. Typically, what we try to do is really try to have our kids kind of direct the type of technical training camps that we offer within the summer months and throughout the school year as well. In addition to that, we also allow them to have a voice in terms of their internship and their placement, because we feel like that really allows them to buy in. And then it also, we feel like that they're more likely to participate and engage within the opportunities that they have, because it is something that they're interested in. And then also they've been able to provide us with feedback. So it really empowers them to feel like that they are a part of our decision making as we are putting them, we're putting on technical training camps and placing them within their internships within the community as well.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. I'm thinking of youth centered and youth voice, and I always think of this story of when I first came on to Our Big Futures back in 2020. And I had all the PowerPoints and I had the program design and I was ready to go. We had a partner ready to hire and we had an OBF member that was in alignment with the position. It was a paid internship. And she started and I think it was maybe the second day I got a text and she was like, I can't do this. I don't want to be here. I can't turn my video on. I'm having anxiety. And I was like, wait a minute, we're missing something, right? And I had all the parts and everything had came together and she didn't feel like she had the skill set to be in the space. She didn't feel confident enough to be in the space to advocate for her needs. And I hadn't done enough work with the partner, shout out to Charlene, to create a more supportive environment. And so when I think about youth voice, I also think that we have to really focus on making sure that our young people have the skills and confidence to utilize their youth voice. That's really, really important. And sometimes we jump to the surveys and we jump to these like really kind of big opportunities where you're invited to come speak in this space and we want you here, we want you there. And nobody, it's like crickets when you send out the invitation, right? And so I think like for us, we have a junior advisory board where we're working with our young people. They're actually training this summer and we're developing leadership skills. And that is so pivotal when you're thinking about youth voice and bringing that voice in, because they first have to know that their voice matters and they have to be confident to speak up.
Absolutely. I think it's, Ariel, to your point, it's like the skills, the confidence to be able to do so, and like having the tools to be able to get there, like whatever that is within their toolbox. And then also to Charlene's point, having somebody there to support them through that process to be able to do it. It's often really hard to kind of jump in and say and direct something and say, this is what I want, without having somebody there to support you through that process. And so something that ASA is also doing that we're excited to launch later this fall is a advocacy platform. It's a digital platform that covers that tools piece of making sure that youth have the tools in their toolbox to be able to advocate for themselves. And so this platform being released later in September, so that'll be up and coming. Look for it on our website and through our newsletter. It will show all the different issues that youth care about that we've learned from various conversations and focus groups and seeking out from youth themselves, and then ways to get there, who to talk to, whether it's a policymaker you want to write a letter to, or if you want to create something on social media for your peers, like what does that mean to like advocate for yourself, both in an organization, in a school, but then also in the broader space. So that's up and coming as well. So to move to the next value, which is commitment to social justice. And this is a conversation that has been prevalent for years, especially over the past couple of years. We're going to talk a lot about what it means to be committed to social justice in a programmatic sense, but also at an organizational level. And Ariel, we've had a couple of conversations about what this looks like at Big Sister, because Big Sister has been dedicated to this work, not just in the program in our Big Futures, but what Big Sister does for staff and what that means for the full organization. So really interested to hear you share a little bit more about that before we really talk about what that looks like in practice for students.
So some of the work that we do, obviously Big Sister of Association of Greater Boston, we really focus on having healthy adult relationships for our young people. And we train our staff. And I think that it's really important, like when you're working with young people or any people, it takes a certain level of introspection, you know, to be able to kind of be in those spaces all the time and make yourself available, especially with coaching and mentoring and so on and so forth. So we have a robust training program for our staff and our math support specialists. And for OBF, we are a very small team. So it is me and my fellow colleague, Wanda, who works primarily with our teens. So we work really, really well together. We are able to like look at training opportunities for ourselves, and our overall consortium provides a great training platform as well.
Now we talked about this at kind of an organizational view. What does that look like in practice for students? And when we're talking about career readiness programs that serve youth, what does that commitment to social justice look like in your individual organizations and spaces?
Initially, for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Tennessee Valley, we are committed for our interns to have a paid opportunity. And so within that paid opportunity, we feel like our young people are more committed. They're more invested within the opportunity because, you know, they're getting paid, they're getting money, and who doesn't like that, right? Especially as teens. But within that opportunity, that includes their soft skills training, which really focuses on, you know, things like communication, which we talked about the voice previously, career exploration, financial literacy, workplace challenges, and things like that. But it gives them an opportunity to understand additional soft skills like being on time, being engaged within the sessions and things like that as well. So it really helps to prepare them for when they are going out into their internships, and then further down the line when they're going out to the community as employees, that this is the expectation that we are providing for you all. Then the financial literacy, that's a big piece that we look at. Some of our young people are very unaware of how to manage their money, how to budget, those types of things. We really spend quite a bit of time on that. We offer incentives in terms of trends for savings over a certain period of time as well. We were able to look at that. And then one of the challenges that we have within our program is transportation. I know that Julian had mentioned that before with her slides. Transportation is a challenge in terms of bringing young people to us, and then also a challenge in getting them to their internships. So we try to be very cognizant of that and placing within their paid internships within communities that are readily available or have access to public transportation for them as well. So that's one of the challenges that we face, just in terms of making sure that there's access for everyone.
I guess just to kind of parallel what Dr. Johnson was sharing around transferable skills for young people when they get into internships, and also looking at the chat, Krista Castro asked, like, what are some of the challenges and barriers for high school students? I think compensation is critical when we think about social justice and supporting our young people. It's critical that young people are being compensated for their time. As caring adults all on this line, we should think about any kind of career exploration opportunity as professional development. And as seasoned professionals, our organizations are covering those costs because we are a human resource in the organization and we're bringing back all of our learnings to make the work better. We should have that same mentality and mindset for our young people when they're having work experiences. And frankly, if that feels radical to folks, they should really evaluate the organization's policies and the effects that it's having on talent recruitment and their retention strategies, because that's a critical piece in providing young people an opportunity, not just for the work experience and building up their resume and skills. It also provides them experience to know that they are valued and that you recognize that they are whole people with whole lives, and that compensation really does help support other barriers such as transportation or childcare or food and sustenance.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Ariel.
Yeah, for us, and as far as implementation goes, it's really interesting. I think the best thing that we've done is stay flexible. And we've really been challenged in making sure that we're designing a program that is accessible. And that's really where that paid opportunities comes from. Is like when they have to choose between working, at a retail job or a fast food job or something like that, versus like a leadership opportunity. And the leadership opportunity, we think that the benefit is such as, the leadership, they choose what? The retail. Some of my program members have to contribute to their households very early on. Another thing is time, the resource of time. When I connect with my young people, a lot of times they're just like, I have a part-time job, I'm in school, I have to babysit and watch work in the home or support my family. And I don't have time for career coaching. What is that anyway? Those are the types of things that I'm getting. So I think being really creative in how you connect and how you define that connection. So if it's a series of text messages where you're connecting with them, like that's okay. If it's a quick phone call, check-in, I think that's okay. It doesn't have to be a virtual call where their video is on. It doesn't have to be very long and super structured. I think building the relationship and making sure that you are accessible as your program is accessible should be top of mind and a priority. And that's the social justice aspect for us, is that stay flexible and make sure that the programming is accessible to your youth.
And to that relationship building piece, it's the relationship building with students and then also with community stakeholders and engaging them with students as well. It's prepping, and Ariel, you mentioned before, how do you prep employers or partners? How do you coach mentors to be able to work with youth and be able to give them what they need? So that kind of leads into our third value here, which is engaging the community and community engagement. And Charlene, I would like to kind of point this question toward you, because Mentor is specifically focused on building social capital for youth and how to develop relationships through mentorships, but by supporting adult mentors. And you mentioned this a little bit earlier. Can you share more about that, about mentors' work, why focusing on the community, and why adult mentors are a key component of career readiness for youth?
Absolutely. I think it's important that young people's progress is really at the center of all the career readiness work and work experiences that are happening. And great organizations are doing a lot of intervention and prevention work with young people all across this nation. And I want to reiterate like what's happening with the caring adults, right? So Mentor is really focusing on helping caring adults in the workplace be the best mentor they possibly can for young people, helping them understand kind of the fundamentals of positive youth development, reminding them about how to engage and ask open-ended questions. And Mentor really stands on our element of effective practice, which is our cornerstone document. It's in its, I think, fourth iteration now after, again, 30 years of work. And that document really provides an opportunity for folks to really better understand with evidence-based practices, how can we structure a healthy mentoring program for young people? So Elements of Effective Practice is our cornerstone document, and then there's a workplace supplement specifically that we're gonna add to the chat. Additionally, I wanna share that we're helping employers adopt a mentoring mindset and really access some turnkey solutions, because we know employers are super busy people as well. These turnkey solutions are based on, again, healthy relationships at work, and we're doing our best to ensure that caring adults have all the tools that they need to be successful when they are working with young employees and retaining young employees for the long haul and helping them develop a career pathway. And how we're doing that work is through our curriculum that we call Connect, Focus, Grow. And Connect, Focus, Grow is really an opportunity for managers of young people, mentors of young people, and young people themselves to engage in a curriculum that's going to help them be more authentic and genuine in their engagements. So we tend to cover in those sessions reminders about, again, how to ask open-ended questions. We have some goal setting tools and sheets to help people really get a healthy relationship that again is genuine and can have longevity. We also have some supports in that curriculum that support our young people finding their assets, and for caring adults to ask questions that help them find their assets. And then last but not least, we have a focus on growth mindset as well, and how success is an iterative process, and that both the mentor and the mentee, the employer and the young person, have an opportunity to learn from each other, and it's not just a one-way street. And so those are the ways that Mentor is really focusing on this work. And the intentionality, again, is mentors of young people, managers of young people, and young people themselves, because we want to help expand the young person's social capital. To be wonderful if they have, their big sister as well as their employer taking this training, so that therefore all three parties and all three stakeholders are kind of meeting in the middle and have the same understanding of what it's like to be in a healthy, high quality relationship with each other at work.
Thank you. And Ariel and Polly, I'd love to hear about how Big Sister and Boys and Girls Club are all engaging the communities of the students that are served.
Charlene had mentioned, being able to support the community, is one of the key factors in which we are placing our internships, being able to support those employers, being able to be there and just ensure that the program from employer employee are successful, for both our interns and for their placements. And really for us is making sure that it's a right fit. Of course, we're servicing teenagers, high school students, and as wonderful as they are, everyone everywhere does not appreciate their wonderfulness that they bring to the table. And so for us, being able to ensure that the fit for our young person is a good fit, not only in terms of the interest of the young person and the work that's being completed, but then also in terms of the community in which they'll be engaging in within the placement, and how can we be supportive of that relationship, just to build relations and things like that. So for us, it's really having, being very hands-on and being very cognizant of our young people and where they're going, where they want to go, and making that connection.
Yes, I love the work that Mentor is doing, and it resonates with me, Dr. Johnson, about working with teens and really having the the temperament to work with them. Very important. Some of the community engagement that I really have focused on over the last year is really bringing in people that are representative of the communities that we serve in. Big Sister Boston primarily serves Black and Latinx female identifying youth. And so while I'm identifying partners, I'm really asking for speakers that reflect who they are and can speak to what is it like to navigate these spaces as a Black woman, as a Latinx woman. And that has really been powerful for us, and them just hearing people's career journeys and career paths. They've learned so much from someone coming in and just talking about their experience. And I think that it feels like a lower lift. We do informational interviews where people send me their Calendly invite, and they let me know like when they're available for someone to meet with them. And we share that out. We share their photo and their profile, and our members get to kind of just go on and sign up for a time to hear about their career pathways. And that has been wonderful. And the other piece of community engagement, which is so great, and definitely I'm failing forward in, is there's so much great work happening in the nonprofit sector. And Charlene, the work that you're doing with Mentor is really the piece that I need to, so looking at that training and bringing that into Big Sister Boston to help support our partners is really important. And we can't miss that part of community engagement. That is working together as we're serving our young people.
Ariel, I appreciate that. And you also hit the nail on the head when we think about the nonprofit sector as a whole, right? Like everybody is working so hard and is so passionate about their stakeholders that sometimes we forget that there are others doing work that can be adjacent or similar or complementary to what we're doing. And so there's this opportunity for us when we have these type of conversations for folks to realize, oh, like I should reach out to Big Sister, I should reach out to Mentor, I should reach out to After School Alliance, I should reach out to Boys and Girls Clubs, because we have tools and resources that we can share with each other and complement each other's work so well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, and then it's ultimately so important to share that work out in whatever capacity, whether it be conversations like this or opportunities to network within the community, or when you have resources like the many that Charlene has shared, the Big Sister Toolkit. Those are all critical pieces to also kind of propel this work forward. So talking a lot about how to engage community partners and having paid working opportunities for youth, and that being like a really key part, that gets to the question about funding. How do you fund something like that, where you're paying youth, you're seeking out paid internship opportunities? Jillian, what kind of funding streams are out there that are available to organizations, either at a national level, like within their own communities? What is out there?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Jean, for sharing the slide. And so many of you who are listening to the webinar might be tapping into some of these. And if so, it's always great to just share in the chat so that people can learn from one another. But these are some kind of ongoing funding activities, right? And at the federal level, we have the education funds like the 21st Century grants that go to the states, the career and technical education, which really, of course, helps with these older student connections. But the recent law actually brought that down to 5th grade, recognizing that career introduction starts early. And we know that it can start as early as, kindergartners and really introducing them to careers. Higher education is thinking about federal work study and how those students in colleges are great mentors, and they have the opportunity to get paid and supported in college as they do work in programs and with young people, and a number of other funding streams, especially AmeriCorps, which has great mentoring programs that come into classrooms, and the juvenile justice funding that supports mentoring programs and areas like that. Child Care Development Block Grant, which is usually children 0 to 13. But again, thinking about across a program, how those funding streams can, one, loosen up other funds for older students and also create that continuum that's so important that students, grow into careers and career understanding as they age. Again, there's just a number of things on this slide. I'll put in the chat, actually, the Wallace Foundation recently put out a guide of available funding for out of school time programs that I think is really helpful to kind of filter through. But talking to your school districts and making sure they know the great work that all programs are doing, so you can tap into their Title I funds and their Title IV-A funds, which are really for any kind of student success and support. A lot of states have their own funding streams, so you can always connect with your statewide after school network. That's a good place to start and think about what funds are available in my state. A number of states are using now their cannabis taxes to put that into youth development funds. And so another variety of other opportunities, civic organizations, chambers of commerce, banks and their community reinvestment dollars. But on the next slide, kind of really want to talk about some newer opportunities. And so this slide is packed. So when I went to think about, okay, but what's on the agenda now? The truth is that, as you guys all are aware, that our field is really having a moment. People really understood in the pandemic how essential these partnerships, the real connections that people make when they're working with their out of school time providers, with their mentors, mean towards their success. And so the American Rescue Plan that came out in March 2021 put a lot of funding into these types of programs, whether it's summer programs, after school programs at the state level, and also at the district level. There's a number of funding streams that are available. So again, on this slide, I have the available funding streams and also some links that people can follow that we'll share out. And really engage you to look into those, as well as also want to just mention the state and local fiscal relief funds, which are at your county governments, your city governments. Really, if you haven't reached out and made partnerships with your city, which I know many of you have, this is a chance. They have funds in their budget because of this rescue plan funding to do exactly the work that we're talking about here, is really reconnecting youth and helping them on their pathways to success. And then I just want to mention a couple other opportunities, and I'll let people explore or ask questions about this later, but two really big ones have come up in the since July started. And one of them is that the Department of Education under Secretary Cardona has made an announcement that really we should engage every student. And that means that the out of school time opportunities that we're providing are not just extras, they're essential. They're essential to education as we know it. And so that commitment is out there from the highest levels of our government right now. And it's something that everybody can engage in, and there are tools and resources to support that. And then the other one, super glad to have Charlene and Mentor here, is a key piece of the work that they're doing has been recognized as well at the national level with something called the National Partnership for Student Success. And again, if you haven't looked at these links, this is critical to the work that we do. This is, the federal government really saying that every student deserves somebody in their life, many people in their life, but at least one person in life that is that mentor, that is that caring adult. And it's our goal as a country to connect students with these people. And so the goal is, I think, 250,000 new mentors. Working with opportunities to develop those mentors and to build those connections. And there are some connected opportunities to that through AmeriCorps, where they're opening up their funding streams to more community partners, more flexibility in how to make the match for AmeriCorps funding to get more people into classrooms, more opportunities in community schools, again, opening up to more community partners, and just a number of really critical opportunities that are out there. And I know Boys and Girls Club has done a lot with workforce pathways for youth, and there are grants in the field that are especially for that. So there's a link here in case you haven't investigated that. Some new grants were just put out recently, but there hopefully will be new grants in the next appropriation cycle. And then there's projects on Million Girls Moonshot, which is a STEM project for people interested in STEM. And then finally, just wanted to mention recognition, even with all the terrible gun violence that we're seeing in the country, when the Congress passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, they really thought about how these programs help create safer communities. And so committed additional funding for the 21st Century Community Learning Centers to help middle school and high school youth and really focus on, the mental health and social supports that they need, and more funding for Project Aware to really help a number of purposes, but also to help people who work with school age youth to be able to respond and be trained in mental health supports. And so just a huge upswell of support from all these areas of the field that if you haven't been aware of, I hope you are. And if you are aware of, keep communicating how you're using these funds so we can keep advocating for more funds for these things that we know are so important. So thanks, Ashley.
Thank you, Jillian. And we will be sharing out the slide deck, all of these resources, and the recording afterwards. So if you're looking at this and you're like, oh my goodness, there's so many amazing resources, you will get access to them afterwards. Thank you everyone for this discussion so far. I'm gonna open it up to Q&A for the last 10 minutes. I've actually been writing down some questions I've been seeing throughout. And everyone just kind of jump in if there's a question to answer. And we'll see how many we can kind of get through in the next couple minutes. But the first question or the most recent question I saw was, how do you prepare employers to be ready for youth as interns or employees?
Yeah, I think it's really important for youth serving organizations, as much as I know we want young people to have work experiences, to really take the time to screen the employer to see if they are genuinely ready to receive young people, meaning do they have the capacity staff-wise to support your young person with the tasks that they're going to take? Do they have a clear objective as to why they want to partner with you? And do you have a clear objective as to why you want to partner with them? There's a kind of a mutual guidance that needs to happen in making sure that employers are ready to kind of receive your young people, in addition to training, like I emphasized, and Mentor again already has a product ready with Connect, Focus, Grow. But regardless of wherever you decide to do training and onboarding and orientation, so that the caring adults better understand the young people that they'll be working with, and that they understand how to work with young people in general are pretty critical.
And I've seen a couple questions here about funding. So are funders showing interest in career readiness? And is career readiness a good theme or hook to lead for funding opportunities?
In my experience, here at Boys and Girls Club of Tennessee Valley, yes, there certainly is, a need within the communities, and funders are looking to fill that need. As we're looking at our young people and they're graduating high school and they're deciding their paths for the future, it's important for us to ensure that they're ready for whatever is coming next. And so when we're looking at communities, and different types of funding patterns, it's very important to ensure that our kids are ready with those skills, and we're providing those skills. And this is how we're providing the skills so that they can give back to the community and be successful employees within the community. And so I think a lot of like foundational and community donors are looking for that aspect, because what they're seeing is as young people are coming into the workforce, they're missing some of that. There are things that they're missing. And so if we can try to get ahead of it and really try to play a role in getting them set up for success and being successful with these key components of effective, work readiness, then I think, really a lot of people are ready to invest in that type of opportunity.
May I add to what Dr. Johnson had noted? Like, there are definitely funders out there that are super excited and enthusiastic about career readiness and workforce development, because the rationale is right that we're supporting all of our young people across the nation to be ready to be contributing citizens to society, right? What foundation or corporate entity isn't interested in supporting that work, but also specifically with all the amazing resources that Jillian shared earlier that After School Alliance has lifted up. You're going to need to write grants for that work, right? And you're going to need evidence and supports and research. And I think that's also where Mentor can be helpful. We did a study in 2019 called the Power of Relationships Research. And in that research, we found that 37% of all adults across the nation, especially working in the corporate sector, thought mentoring was really important. And then it rose to 58% of adults when they had a mentoring program in the organization. Didn't even mean they were a part of it, just that it existed in the organization. So we know that corporate America sees the significance of mentoring, and I will put that research in the chat. And you all can always feel free to kind of lift up those evidence-based practices and citations when you're developing your grants for career readiness work as well.
And I can speak to this question a little bit too, because American Student Assistance acts as a funder in this space as well. So there are many foundations and nonprofits out there that are dedicated specifically to this work, ASA being one of them. And I'll drop my email in the chat if anybody's interested in having questions about grant making in any capacity. But then there's also a lot of pooled funding initiatives that have been bigger conversations about what's out there as far as innovative career exploration opportunity. I'm going to put one in the chat right here, which is the Catalyze Challenge. It's a pooled funding initiative that ASA is involved with many other funders. And so that actually gives you a list of funders who are interested in this space, both in this kind of initiative, but then also individual grants. And so really at every level, whether it be a local nonprofit foundation or those larger entities, there's a lot of conversation about career readiness and a lot of interest in this space right now.
Ashley, forgive me, I forgot one more thing I wanted to say
Yeah,
about
go for it.
corporate entities too. So
Yes.
for me being in the nonprofit space my entire career, I just recently learned about ESG, environmental, social, and governance criteria that's happening in corporate social responsibility offices, right? And they have funding arms. And so kind of corporate entities with their philanthropic arms are really thinking about what is our environmental impact, our social impact, our governance impact. And of course, under the social, is also social justice issues such as youth development as well. So thinking about like local corporate entities and what their ESG strategy is and trying to figure out who you could talk to a little bit more about that might also be helpful when you're narrowing down funding.
Absolutely.
And just, I would just add is that we've been really creative about our funding. So we do have an interest in our programming, obviously, ASA. And but with the Junior Advisory Board, it was really difficult to find funding to create that paid part. So we actually partnered with the City of Boston's Department of Youth Employment and Engagement, and we submitted a proposal to them where they hire them under their youth program, and they're paid directly from the City of Boston to participate in our Junior Advisory Board program. So I'm just adding that to say you might have to get a little creative about certain aspects of your career readiness programming. And to Jillian's point, when she pointed out the funding that is going on to cities and states, really tapping into that and figuring out how to bring all the funding together.
I see another question here in the chat. In working with students in an alternative Title I high school that does not offer CTE courses, how could we in an after-school format bring CTE offerings to students?
I'll go ahead and take that one if I may. So what we do in some of our high schools here in Knoxville and surrounding areas is very, very similar to that. All of the same CTE programs are not offered at each high school. And so what we do is we offer technical training camps in the summer. This past summer, we have offered 12. It has been a very long summer, but it has been a great summer because our kids have been exposed to all kinds of different things. So it could be like health sciences, it could be cosmetology, culinary arts, welding, criminal justice. We've also done some IT programming, looking at game design, coding languages, all of those types of things, to where our kids are getting access and they're getting hands-on learning opportunities and exposure to these different fields. And it may or may not be offered at their high school. So this past week, we just completed an advanced nursing camp. And so it was at the University of Tennessee here in Knoxville. And so we partnered with their nursing faculty and staff there at the school. And so the goal was to advance those young people that have health science curriculum at their high school, but for those that don't, that may have come through an initial camp with us, they can get some additional exposure and some more in-depth concepts in terms of expanding their skill set so that they're prepared when they go post-secondary for, to get their CNA, to get their RN, BSN, or whatever they would like to do. So it's one of the things that we have been able to offer the community just within our areas, to be able to offer some of those technical training camps in conjunction with institutions, community colleges, and then of course UT here. And then we've also brought people in. I mean, we're in the Life Skills room. We transformed it into a salon to our cosmetology camp, but just really allows our kids to get some exposure to those opportunities that they may not have readily have access to.
Thank you. And I think we're pretty close to time now. The hour goes by so fast, but thank you everybody for attending. Thank you so much to our panelists for coming here and sharing your expertise in this space. And I wanted to share real quick, there's another webinar in August focused on the Big Sister Toolkit. And this is August 18th. It's from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this one is called Guiding Female Identifying Youth on the Path to Education and Career, Gender Intentional Mentoring Strategies. So we're focusing on Big Sister's work. Ariel is going to be coming back for this one, and we're actually going to have a student or youth coming in to share her own experiences, and then also organizations working specifically for female identified youth in career exploration and career readiness. Thank you again for attending. We will share resources later today, tomorrow, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.